So just so people know, you might have gotten a little message that popped up. We've recorded all these meetings just to make sure they're available to folks who weren't able to join us. So you just saw the notice that we are recording tonight. Just be aware. And thanks for being with us tonight and taking your time. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. We'll give just one more minute, let folks join us, log on, get settled, and then we will start tonight's project update forum. Thank you again for taking the time and joining us tonight. We appreciate it. All right, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's project update forum. Thank you one more time for taking a chunk of your evening tonight and joining us. Appreciate it. At this particular moment, thank you for muting. We appreciate it, just to make sure that there's no background noise. I think you know the deal if you've been to a couple of these before. If not, I'll sort of give you a little bit of the lay of the land, then we'll get right into it. My name is Josh Lasky. I'm with a firm called Link Strategic Partners. We've been a proud partner of Montgomery College for a few years now, going back to the very beginning of the design phase of the Leggett building. Now we've moved on to the construction phase, and so we continue to help to make sure there's open lines of communication with the community, that we're responding to questions as best we can, and we've got kind of standing opportunities for engagement and dialogue throughout this process. So the project update forum that you were here tonight attending is sort of the latest in a series of meetings and conversations that we've been having for quite a long time with the community. And thank you again for bringing the energy to that process. I think it's sort of standard at this point, but we've shifted, as I was mentioned, from in-person to Zoom-based engagement for these meetings. We found that it works well. We've tried a couple different formats. Thanks to your feedback, we've now sort of landed on this meeting style format where we can see everyone. You have the chance to come off mute, share your comments, questions, concerns, and get responses from the college, from Barton Mallow and other members of the project team. So if you're having a technical issue, that said, I've got a couple of folks on the line who can assist from my team at Link. Molly Mitzner, who you may be familiar with, and also Caroline Podolicchio are here to support you. So please do send them a direct message in the chat, or give us a wave if you need some help, and we'll help you get sorted. As always, please feel free to drop questions and comments into the chat. We leave that open during the meeting. Please take advantage of it. We want as many questions and comments and thoughts as you have on your minds, so please utilize that. As always, we're going to make all of the questions and the replies from the college and the project team public on the project website. That's where you can get all the project information, lots of resources on there, copies of the weekly updates, links to sign up for the project update forums, etc. So take advantage of that website if you haven't already, and we can drop the link into the chat. If for some reason we can't answer a question right here in this moment, we will do our best to go back and get the answer and then quickly follow up so we have a reply to the folks that are interested and make that public. As always with these Zoom meetings, we take advantage of closed captioning. So there's a little button at the bottom ribbon where you have the controls. You can hit that closed caption button if that is easier for you and that's your preference. So take advantage of it. And I mentioned earlier, right at 6 p.m. we began recording, and that's just to make sure we've got a copy of this meeting available for anyone that isn't able to come here tonight and wants to participate in our process. So to get a little bit more into the content of the Project Update Forum, one of the pieces of feedback that we got during the last forum is that that we should sort of put the bottom line up front, and so not keep people waiting on tenterhooks for the update that they're really seeking. So I have a couple of quick updates for you all. First off is there are no changes from our existing plan of action and our proposed timeline. So there are no big shifts to report, nothing new, nothing that should be shocking, fairly consistent from our last update to you all. So please know that. The second is in response to some inquiries from neighbors, the project team actually ordered a re-inspection from American Pest to get confirmation that there is no evidence of rat activity on the project site. So we'll talk more about that, but I wanted to let you all know that we did get a re-inspection and got a third party to let us know that we were in good shape on that front. And we've had a couple of inquiries around stormwater management. The bottom line there is that the project team continues to monitor stormwater conditions on a daily, sometimes more than daily basis on and around the site, continues to follow all of the requisite guidance from the city, from the county, from the state on managing that stormwater, treating it before it leaves the site. And we're in near daily contact with oversight officials to make sure that we're doing what we need to. And if adjustments are needed, making those adjustments, and we'll show you how we're handling that. But I did want to just speak to those things before we got into the meat of the meeting, just so you know that we do value the feedback, we do value the questions that come in. Please keep those questions coming. It helps us stay accountable to you all and make sure that we're being fully transparent about the process and bringing you in as partners and collaborators as much as possible. So we do have a much more robust, comprehensive update, and we will get to it in about a minute. But as always, we're going to start with the presentation, and then we're going to move into our Q&A. That's why you've got the slide share happening right now. You're seeing our colleague Dave Coleman's desktop. Before I pass it over to Dave Coleman, though, I'm going to ask Brad Stewart, Vice President and Provost, to just offer some greetings on behalf of the college.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Things are cooking along here at Montgomery College. We're about halfway done with our second summer session. Almost all of those classes have been virtual. And we're also launching next week our phased-in start of our return to campus project. Some staff members, some administrators, and some faculty members will start to come back to our campus, maybe a couple of days a week, maybe less, maybe more. And we're getting ready for classes that will start on August 30th. We'll have a limited number of classes on campus, particularly those classes that need hands-on experience for our students, like lab science courses and health science courses and fine arts courses. So we're looking forward to the campus slowly waking back up and being operational this fall. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll try to get you the answers and the information you need. Thanks, Josh. And Dave, I think you're up next.
Sure.
Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. And again, I hope everybody is safe and healthy. As we've done at the previous updates, we'll talk about the meeting agenda first. So we're going to talk about kind of the current construction status, touch on COVID-19, go through some progress updates, and then talk about logistics. So, COVID-19, there haven't been a lot of changes, although the system is very fluid. I think we all know as we read the newspapers, things change and we adapt accordingly. Since the last update, the one thing that had changed was that if people are vaccinated, they're not required to wear a mask. So that's the policy we have in effect on site. But we still try to maintain as much separation as possible. We still do not hold very many in-person meetings there. Again, trying to follow all of the recommendations so that we stay current and keep everybody healthy. But again, it's very fluid. So as things change, we'll adapt to the local standards and again, best practices moving forward. Progress update. For those of you who don't go on the website, or if you do go on the website, the college's website contains weekly updates under this tab right here, indicated as update. So I just posted here the update, the most recent update of July 23rd. It talks about the fencing work, some site utilities, earthwork, and then this update. So at any time, anybody can go in there and look at what that weekly update is. And if there's some significant change that's going to occur in between the weekly updates, then those will be communicated by the college through the email post and everything else. So everyone is fully aware of what's going on should there be any changes. Schedule wise, as Josh had indicated, we did get our sheeting and shoring permit. I'll talk a little more in detail of what that is again in a few minutes. We're basically on the same timeline. We had a little bit of slippage getting that permit only because the county had still dealing with some COVID issues as well as vacation time through the summer, but we're through that process and have started that work. I'll show you kind of where we stand on that. So there's no real significant changes there. And kind of a little more detailed view here on the schedule. We're in that foundations and structure support. That's kind of where we are right now. I think it's easier to kind of see exactly where we are when we look at the pictures, right? This is my favorite part of the presentation is to say, okay, this is what the site looks like today, or at least last weekend. This is where the buildings that we demolished were located. You can see we've kind of excavated down to grade. This area over by the existing campus, we put some utilities in, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then if you look at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see kind of these metal posts sticking up. So that's actually part of the sheeting and shoring system that we were talking about earlier. So a lot of work has been going on, keeping the site as organized as possible so that minimizes, kind of traffic, noise, and everything else around the site. Kind of going into a little more detail, kind of pictures of the same things, but we since the last project update, we removed all of the foundations that were in the ground. We've got a rough grading underway and the sheeting and shoring is underway. And again, if you see this line of posts sticking up out of the ground here, that's the soldier piles that we talked about last time. And again, we'll touch on again today. So great progress on the site, once we got that other permit to keep things moving forward, to keep us on schedule. The other thing that is going on site that we've been working on are site utilities. So if you look at the plan on the screen in front of you, the black line are the utilities that we've installed to date. Oops, I apologize for that. So a lot of work has gone in while we were demolishing the buildings and doing the grading. You were limited a little bit of the space we could use, but we used it as much as possible to get all of this installed around the site. The green, blue, and red lines, they mean different things to us for different utilities, but those are all lines we still have to install. And we haven't been able to do that yet, again, because of logistics of the site. So our site utility contractor will be leaving the site while we move on with the next phase of stuff and come back later on to finish off those utilities once the building gets farther along. One of the issues that arose once we demolished those buildings was kind of the site lighting around the sidewalks around the site. So these lights were all fed from the existing buildings from power. So they all got their power from there. And when these buildings were demolished, they lost power. So we brought out temporary light stands to shine some light in those areas to maintain, safety and just walkable areas that people could see. And then by July 5th, we had rewired and got power from other sources from the campus, brought power there and relit all of those lights. So everything is back the way it was before the building demolition occurred. So kind of reacted on that as it occurred so that we, again, maintain lighted sidewalks as quickly as possible. we mentioned last time that, sheeting and shoring, which is how we retain earth to provide a safe working environment for the workers. This building is in essence like a split level building. So part of it is below grade, kind of in these areas. So that sheeting and shoring, I talked earlier about the posts that were driven in, and that's what we call piles. So I know there's a lot of colors on this slide, but if you think about it, we installed the piles starting at this area where my arrow is. We installed all the way down, going up Fenton Street, kind of parallel with Fenton, and then going across the top by Science North. There were a total of 56 piles. We installed all of those. That work was complete. And you might ask yourself, well, how did we get that work done? Kind of from that noise management standpoint, a lot of times those piles are installed by a driven system. So you have a weight that's dropped that drives them into the ground that makes a lot of noise. Well, in this case, the college and Bard Mallow, we opted very early on to drill those in the ground. So we had a drill rig on site. They drilled those down and put the steel members in. So it was the quietest way really to put those in place. Now that those are in place, we've started putting the wood boards in, and that's this wood lagging I mentioned here. I'll show you a picture in a second, but we actually will reverse direction on those. And that work, these are kind of the wood lagging I was talking about. So basically we have to excavate down and cut those boards and slide those into place. So there's no new machinery that's brought onto site. Everything that's there and been working will continue to do so. And the noise levels shouldn't change much at all because we're working below grade. And as we talked in previous updates, working below grade is the best shield for noise. So shouldn't really see any noticeable impacts. And really for the sheeting and shoring, no real noticeable traffic patterns. Our workforce probably increases. It's been there already to about 20 people on site. Just as an FYI for you, this picture on the bottom right is the drill rig that we used on site to install the driven piles, or not driven, but the piles on site for that sheeting and shoring system. So again, wood lagging boards started today, and those will continue kind of in the direction that I discussed on the previous slide. So that work is going to take us, a couple of, a month or so to get all of that in, a month and a half. So as that work progresses, then we'll start actually with the structure itself, meaning the concrete foundations. So on this slide, I know there's a lot of colors there, but at the same time, this dark blue line are the retaining walls. So that's the concrete wall, like your basement wall that will go against that sheeting and shoring to provide the back wall of the building. And then these boxes are approximately 5 foot by 5 foot wide, just to give you an idea. A little bigger, a little smaller, they vary a little bit, but those are the concrete foundations that'll go in the ground. And so once the sheeting and shoring is installed, the concrete crew will come in. We'll have some steel rebar trucks, which I'll review the routing again shortly, but steel rebar trucks and forms will be delivered. And then once the excavation is done and the rebar is set, then concrete trucks will be coming on site. So some of the things, the activities we have, going on site include cutting of the wood forms, cutting of the rebar, the excavator that's already on site, but he'll be digging those excavations for those 5 by 5 holes, and then the concrete truck deliveries. And the commitments we've made and will continue to work on site is making sure that we don't have any unnecessary equipment idling on site. In addition, we talked previously about the concrete trucks. When you see a concrete truck on the road, the cylinder on the back end is rotating because that helps mix the concrete, and keep it active until it gets to the site. So we minimize the rotation and transport to the site. And then right when the concrete is getting ready to be placed into the foundation, then that concrete rotation has to rev up in order to activate the concrete and allow it to go in. So none of that should be extremely loud to anybody, any of the neighbors or even the college, but just to give an idea what happens. And those foundations should take approximately 2 months once we get started. Sorry. As we look at site logistics, a couple of things. The wood fence that we had talked about on previous updates has been installed and stained. You can see it resides here. At one point, some of that fence was going to go a little farther, but we really wanted it to stay out of the tree protection areas. So we made the wood fence an 8-foot high fence and kept it really to prevent, some light distribution and to help shield noise and everything from Tacoma Avenue, because truck traffic unfortunately will occur in that area. In addition, we revised our trailer location to try to take it away from any areas truly adjacent to Tacoma Avenue. The trailer is a single wide double height trailer. We need to get this out here as soon as possible to allow our project team really to work it to their full extent with everybody face to face as we ramp up and get more work going on here. So that'll be coming in the next couple months also. Again, that helps clear up this area for our truck traffic. We talked last time about deliveries, and I know with the concrete stuff, especially the concrete rebar, those things are going to be coming in the next month and a half or so, or within the next month. So, those trucks and deliveries that are on pull behind pickups, those don't have any problems accessing the site, staying on Fenton, coming off Fenton and leaving on Fenton. Same thing with the flatbed trucks like this one. That's what a lot of the rebar is going to come on, 40-foot flatbeds. We've had those trucks on site before, done the routes. So we'll see more deliveries when we start this process. But again, they'll all be coming up and down Fenton as previously discussed. This is a typical concrete delivery truck. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the part that rotates. So when we start the concrete, we'll see obviously these trucks come in during normal working hours. And then there'll be times when people will use box trucks to deliver, again, just to give you an idea of the things you may see. Again, last time we talked about these larger trucks. These are 60-foot low boys. These are going to be when we start the structural steel. We'll have another forum before we start that, so everybody's aware when those trucks will start coming down. But again, we'll review the traffic patterns. We stay within our commitments and what we talked about during the previous forum. So there's the existing conditions again, and we look at truck traffic. So those pull behind trailers, the flatbeds, they're able to come into the site, offload their materials, and then go back on Fenton with appropriate flagging. So that actually works just as we had always thought. When we get into larger trucks, if for some reason they can't make that turn, they'll still come in off of Fenton. They'll pull alongside where the existing kind of job trailer is now, and they're able to back up into this area and still turn back onto Fenton with appropriate flagmen. And just to kind of restate what we talked about last time, we have had 60-foot low boys do this maneuver already. So we've practiced this. We know it can be done. We've done it already, and that's what we're going to continue to do. I show this last slide is the, sometimes who knows why something has a peculiarity to it, but the alternate plan, should we get a 60-foot low boy that is especially difficult to maneuver, they will pull into the site. They will still back up as far as they can. In worst case scenario, they could back up into the loading dock on university property with appropriate flagging and get turned around and go that way. Don't anticipate this being used very much. We talked about it last time and just wanted to show it as, making sure that we, don't surprise anybody and that we have alternate plans should conditions change on this part of the site. So hopefully that, again, nothing new there, just kind of reviewing what we talked about previously on the existing floor plan of the building. Josh had talked about the rodent, inquiry, the questions that came up. So before we started construction, we had American Pest out there. They surveyed the buildings before we ever started any work in the area. And they didn't see any infestation at that time. And, we got the requests and questions about what might be going on now. We called them again. They came out, did an inspection, did not see any increased activity on site. So they gave us the letter that's shown here on this slide, and that letter was also posted on the Montgomery College website. So responding to all that, and then, just kind of as a belts and suspenders type approach, we also decided to go the extra mile and kind of have them place some rodent control perimeter measures around the site, on the site, and those will be monitored monthly also, so that, should anything change, we'll know right away, and we're being proactive to make sure nothing could affect anything in the community. So then we talked about stormwater. So stormwater, has a couple of different facets. There's, the stormwater during construction, and then there's the stormwater post-construction when the building is complete. So, we have all of our sediment erosion control measures in place. We've gone above and beyond what the plans are. We've had, almost 30 inspections from the county, and they continue to be a partner to help us look at things. And so, things do happen though. There was a severe storm in Tacoma Park last evening. I think there were branches down in the neighborhood. Again, I hope everybody's okay. And so the first thing that happened on site today was, our superintendent walked around the site to check all measures, to check and see if the water quality was good and if there were any areas that were broken due to that event. We didn't witness anything. We've heard some questions come up, so we'll do another inspection tomorrow and see if anything was breached during the day that needs repaired. And we'll talk to the county inspector. He typically visits the site after every rainstorm, so I would expect he'll be there tomorrow. If not, we'll call him and see if he wants us to do even additional measures of beyond what he's already done so far. But to date, he's been, he's asked us to do some extra items that we've done, and things have worked pretty well. Just from a high level, post-construction, when we're done with this project, the impervious area that was there previously will be greatly reduced, and there are water quality ponds that kind of will be in place to help mitigate, kind of the water generated from the site. I think, Josh, you were going to talk a little bit more about kind of stormwater, because it's a complex issue for sure.
Definitely a complex issue, and clearly, I think the college, based on our discussion, plays a role as a steward, given the land that it manages. I think, I just kind of wanted to flag this as something that I know has been, an issue on the radar for a lot of the neighbors and a lot of folks that show up for the meeting. So if there are questions, if there are specific observations, please drop them into the chat. As we go into, Q&A, would love to hear from folks. I think we certainly do our due diligence as a project team, but part of the process is certainly listening and relying on those observations. So, I've been really pleased that, when you have those observations, you flag them for the project team, you flag them for other officials that relay them to us. Thank you for doing that. Continue to do that. But certainly, we've got great minds and practitioners on the call tonight. So if you do have those questions, please elevate them either in the chat or when we go to the Q&A period. Let's hear from you, and we'll get those answers.
So just for everybody's information, we did kind of show on the slide, if you want to see some of the stormwater information that's available to everybody, it's on the website under the resources page. And it goes through all of the stuff that's been designed in to help the situation that it exists in that whole watershed. Hopefully I didn't move too quick tonight, but again, things are moving on site, and we have those updates. As Josh said, we really do appreciate the questions and the comments. I mean, they help us. We do want to be sensitive. We want to make sure that if we miss something, we can adapt and overcome, as far as when things change on site. So the hotline is still active. So that's available to everybody. That's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline. And they get the information to Bart Mallow and to the college when those calls are made. We can schedule virtual meetings or meetings by appointment. The website is still, obviously a great resource to find information. If anybody hasn't signed up for the project email, please do that, because those things come out and they're important updates that might interest you. And then again, hopefully everybody's finding these regular project update forums beneficial, just to provide information to everybody. Before I turn over back to Josh for Q&A, I will say, before we start the structural steel, we need to have the next update. Maybe there'll be one before then. We adapt depending on the comments that we get from everybody. But that's kind of in the next significant milestone. So we want to basically get together to prep everybody and kind of set expectations to understand those next steps as they go forward. So hopefully everybody found that beneficial. And Josh?
Dave, it's educational every time, and I've seen this presentation before, so that's saying something. Great job. Thank you for all the all the extensive detail and update. So I know that there are probably questions. Paul, I'll pick on you just because I saw your chat come in. Maybe let's start with you. I know you've got questions about stormwater.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, I have a couple questions. I've been, as you know, very interested in the water situation over there. And we have 3 documented incidents of release of sediment from the site and a few other anecdotal ones that have not been fully documented. The sediment's ending up in a tributary of Sligo Creek and probably ultimately ending up in Sligo Creek. I don't have the wherewithal, nor do the Friends of Sligo Creek actually to trace things all throughout the system. But some of these are fairly heavy sediment loads. I observed them coming out of the 2 driveway entrances on Fenton Street and also the entrance on Tacoma Avenue. One of these was particularly disturbing because I went over there and talked to some workers who were standing there, and the worker assured me that this was a temporary failure of a sediment filter, and they had already fixed it, and it was going to be just peaches and cream. However, I later learned that when the DPS inspector went over there the next day, he was told there actually was no release and there was no failure of a filter. So I think that there's probably a lack of communication here. But I just want to hear from Bart and Mallow if you guys or someone from college, maybe the ground staff, are checking not just the sediment control features that I know you've put in place. I know you have a tank and a sedimentation tank and filters, although I can't see them. We hid everything behind that fence now. But if you're actually checking to see things that are coming off site and going down the street gutter drains and into the drainage system. I mean, that's what happened with the last ones that I saw. They were traveling down the gutters, the one at Tacoma Avenue, did a diagonal across the street and went down into the city storm sewer system right by Richard Wheel's house. And I have this all photographed. If you'd like my photographs, these are all posted to the DEP and DPS through our water watchdog program. But I really hope that you're inspecting these things on a regular basis, both when it rains and when you're using water on site that might be generating some sediment.
Paul, really,
Those are all,
yeah,
well,
I was just
sorry, I
going
was
to
gonna speak
thank
to-
you for the comment, but go ahead, Dave, please.
I was gonna say thanks. So, we do inspect, and I'll have to, kind of sit with my team again and make sure, just kind of go through the process again. But we do inspect after every storm. We have had the inspector come out, and he wants additional measures put in. It's not always a repair thing. Sometimes he has seen some things and said, "I told you to do X. And by the way, I want you to do X, Y, and Z on top of that because the conditions just have changed or they aren't what he or anybody thought they would be." So he's had us add extra measures, which we've done every time. Can't really speak to a Q&A, but I definitely will have that discussion with the team because there shouldn't be miscommunication. I mean, if something happened, then that's what we need to fix and repair and move on and be transparent with it. That's our commitment to you and to everybody else. So I'll have to address that one and just talk with the team of what may happen, but more importantly, make sure something like that doesn't happen again, because we appreciate the comments and your attention in the matter and realize that the goal is to keep the sediment on site and not going to the sewer or to anywhere else.
Thanks, Dave. Paul, I wasn't sure if there was a second question there as well. You kind of hinted at maybe a second question or second part, if you got both of them in there.
I think I probably got both of them in there. Just one little side thing. If there was a better way that we could contact people by email when we observe these things. I am and another neighbor, we've kind of divided up the responsibility, and we've been reporting these through our water watchdog program at Friends of Sligo Creek. That goes, of course, to our people, and it also goes to the county. But it often takes a long time to get a response out of anybody that way. If we could just CC somebody on the team, rather than, that main thing where we post everything, but CC somebody on the team so we could get this to you immediately. And then Dave, your folks could go out there and take a look at it, and we could even maybe meet at some of these areas. I'm normally around if there is a problem going on there. So it's a communications issue.
Yeah, would it be possible to use that 800 number, because we get notified right away? We may or may not see an email. I mean, if you're a person working on site, yeah, we do have smartphones that are smarter than me, but that 800 number, when they get an urgent call, they prioritize and they call direct to get a hold of somebody. So is that reasonable to ask? Just, I mean, again, do what you have to do. I understand all of that, but that 800 number gets right to us. Without a delay.
I guess we could do that. I could pass that on to the other people who are involved. I'm not the only one. I'm just the loudest one here, but
Yeah.
as you guys know me. But I could pass this on to the rest of the team. There's my colleague Ann Vorse has put something in the chat. So
yeah.
She may also have some questions here.
Yeah, we just to reiterate, the reason we did the 24-hour, that call line was just for that reason, to make communications transparent and quick. So I would think that is, in my opinion, I think that's the best way to get a hold of somebody quickly. I mean, but again, I understand you the process is to go through. So hopefully that would address that.
Yeah, and Paul, I appreciate the your desire to both sort of promote accountability. Yes, you have the route of going to city or county oversight, but you also want to see results quicker. So I would say, whatever you share with them, share that with us. Please utilize the hotline. That is definitely the fastest way to get a response, just given the fact that that is a 24-hour number. But if it's more appropriate and you'd rather use the email address, that's also another venue for you. Let's address Ann's question, though, about a specific person who's in that accountability role for stormwater. Dave, is there someone who is sort of in charge of stormwater management on site, or does that fall to a foreman or another role?
No, so we have two people who have what used to be called the green card. So those are our two superintendents on site. And so they're, again, with our small trailer, we have not everybody is there every day, but one of those two gentlemen are there every day because they're certified and got the card to carry to do that from an MDE standpoint.
Perfect. And Paul, I don't know if you shared those photos with us yet. I think, if you haven't, we'd like to be able to see them. That's good feedback for the folks on site. That's good feedback for the project team. So please share them at your will.
Okay, I'll go ahead and send them to the website, and then you guys can deal with them, archive them, do whatever what you want.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
There was another question that came in from Valerie in the chat, so we can address that one. That was about sort of the timing of any particularly or especially noisy activities that might be occurring on site in juxtaposition to, student class time and midterms and that type of thing. Dave, do you want to talk about our sort of plan to notify around any particularly noisy activity that we have coming up this fall semester?
Yes. So again, anything that's particularly going to be a change, that's, there are those email chains that go out for sudden changes. And then we've got that weekly update that we give for kind of the activities that we're going to do. But again, there's a separate email that comes out from the college if we talk and think there's something that's going to be especially concerning.
Perfect. I see that.
And I think I have something to add. I'll make sure that there are bi-weekly now and perhaps weekly soon, coming up soon, construction meetings about where they show me everything that's going to happen. And I'll be sure to take those things. I can forward you a list of things that are going to happen that might be noisy, or else I can translate that into non-construction language and let you and your faculty know when there might be some noise in the building. I'll share that with Jim Sneesick, your dean, and we'll get everybody who works in the building. We'll get the same information.
Thanks, Brad. That would be very helpful. Because
Thank you.
I'm like, my office is right overlooking, so.
I'll put you at the top of my email list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, for the question. Thank you, Dr. Stewart, for responding. There's another question. I'll sort of take these in order. Anne asked about getting contact information for the stormwater management people on site that Dave mentioned. Dave, correct me, and Molly, maybe correct me. If you use that project email, that goes to basically the entire project team. Is that right? And so
The
basically,
hotline phone number, right? That's where they then make sure they get a hold of somebody for critical items on site. So that phone number is what we set up because you'd have 13 different numbers or a hotline phone that somebody's trying to carry that really might not give it the importance that it needs. So that's why we did the 24-hour hotline.
perfect. So in terms of, urgent, really specific need, hotline is great. If it's not a particularly urgent issue, but you still want a response, the email will get basically to all the right people as well. Let's see. Lorraine asked about rodent control. Dave, you mentioned that there were some additional pest management measures that were put in place following inspection from American Pests. Do you want to go into a little bit of detail on those?
Sure, I don't have the exact quantity, but again, we found no infestation, no evidence of any increased activity. That was the letter when Pest Control Services was there. And we just, again, in talking with the college and knowing the questions came up I used the word belts and suspenders earlier. For lack of a better term, they're called rodent traps, if you will, but they're put around the interior of the site just in case something would occur. Those get checked monthly also by American Pest. That's not something that we do. So they come out and check activity levels and will advise us if they see something occurring that's unexpected. But that's just kind of a belts and suspenders approach again.
So I wanted to just say a few words about that because we know from experience that when there's a lot of ground moving, that rats leave and look for other places to go. And the last time we had a major problem in the neighborhood was with P3 when the bioretention area was dug out and we had several rats got into our house, but not just our house, my next door neighbor and another neighbor that was very close. And it was very clear that they were migrating and just getting the heck out of there. And so what I realized is that it's important to sort of anticipate that ahead of time, that that's going to happen and have things set up to maybe attract them. After you did quite a lot of earth moving, I did learn that neighbors across the street did see rats. We were starting to see rats all over the neighborhood. And that's, there's a lot of dirt that you all moved. I mean, they live in the dirt. And so disturbing their homes, I'm happy to hear that you have set up traps in a variety of areas. And I'd like to know more about that. Are you setting them up on campus as well, in more areas or what? Because they've gone. They're not there anymore. I'm not surprised your guy didn't see them because they're in the neighborhood now. And so I want to make sure we have enough measures set up so that we can sort of try to abate that. And concern I have is if you do more ground moving, which you probably will, to anticipate ahead of time that you're going to have rats moving. They're everywhere. And so to figure out how do you control that? There must be a protocol for doing that in anticipation. and having enough traps in certain areas or whatever, but I just wanted to bring this up, that I'm not surprised they're not there now. You know, they're here, they're with us. And my neighbors just caught some not all that long ago, right under their porch. And, you know, we've all lived here a long time without an infestation like that, like we've been seeing. So any help you can give us in that regard is very much appreciated, because I expect there'll be more ground moving. So thank you.
Good, appreciate the comments. And so I know that what we did was put 20 traps kind of around the site. But to your point, I think it warrants a discussion with the college, because everything's got to be integrated, right? Because it's one thing to be on the construction site on the campus. There may be some protocols. So we'll put on our list to get together, the college and us, and see what
Yeah.
might make sense there, to your point.
Yeah, is there a rodent control person that we can talk with associated with the college or with you all? I don't know how you, is it you, David, your team that's controlling it, or who would it be that we would talk to more about this project?
Lorraine, that is Ali Fadl.
Okay.
And I will have a conversation about that. We do have a plan for pest control on a
Yeah.
regular basis, and we have a contractor that comes in. If you look closely at the corners of our buildings, various areas and stuff like this, you'll see traps.
Good.
I'll follow up with Ali about whether or not we need the contractor to come more often.
Yeah, and maybe I was thinking that I'd like to survey our neighbors again, because last time I did, there were a lot of rats being sighted, and I'm wondering if it's abated, and so maybe we need to gather more intelligence and then talk with Ali, and because maybe your traps are doing some good too.
Lorraine, we appreciate the question. We appreciate your observations. You know, and I'm Dr. Stewart, I'm glad, you know, we were able to identify, yes, the college has an integrated pest management strategy. So, you know, if we, you know, yes, the site's important, but the campus as a whole is also important. Active pest management's important. You know, I think the college takes it seriously. Clearly, I've heard that they do based on prior discussions to tonight, and certainly wants to make sure that they're doing what they can to mitigate any impacts that we're seeing. So thank you for raising it. And I think Dr. Stewart and Ali will work on getting a little bit more information, and we can
Yeah.
share that.
And Ollie is terrific, and so I look forward to working with him. He really is. So thanks.
Lucky to have Ali on the team for sure.
Yeah.
So we've gotten a couple more comments and questions that came in. Councilmember Kovar raised the idea of setting up potentially a walkabout. Dr. Stewart, do we think that would be feasible? Maybe something where we pull together some folks from the facilities team from the college, and potentially some officials from DEP as appropriate, just to have a conversation?
Yeah, that would be fine. My team is ready to be part of that whole thing. It might be good to have folks from the city of Tacoma Park involved in that. And since it was Councilmember Kovar's idea, we would certainly like to have him along on the walkabout as well. But let's have we'll have a conversation about how and when we might want to try such a thing. I was on campus this morning at 6 a.m. after the storm. We had a power outage over on the West Campus, and I drove through the neighborhoods. I noticed the branch down in front of your house, Lorraine, and then I drove through all of the other areas downstream from that, and I didn't see water standing anywhere at 6 in the morning. I don't know if I was too early or just missed it or whatever, but we'd be glad to walk that whole area there and see what might be going on here.
I think that would be very helpful. Probably, you know, this time from what I could tell, the storm was so quick that even though it was intense in terms of water, maybe there wasn't enough of a buildup to really show there. But we've heard over time, including at some of these meetings previously, especially from some of the folks who live along New York Avenue there, where the stream flows behind their homes, that they have some what appear to me to be legitimate concerns about how that water will be treated. I think there's two separate things there. What's happening during construction, and Paul had good questions about that, and I hope those can get addressed. But then the second thing is, what's it going to be like at the end? Now's the time to look at it before everything is irrevocable and there's no way to potentially make some adjustments. So I think that would be the purpose of that, to understand better what happens when the water leaves the campus. So I appreciate that, and I'll talk to city staff about it as well. Thank you.
Thanks for raising the idea, council member. I think a meeting of the minds on that is probably beneficial to all the stakeholders involved in figuring out what the college can do to be a better steward of that stormwater. Certainly, I'm as a former instructor of urban sustainability at the University of DC, I get excited about stormwater management facilities. So I'm excited about what's in store for the design of the building. So I'm excited about that. But I think even just convening a conversation, with you and perhaps some folks from the city and others alongside the college could be really, really beneficial to get some clarity and figure out what can be done. So thank you for raising that idea. There are a few more comments in the chat. Richard raised a couple of questions. I'll take them sort of in order. Thanks for the positive feedback. And then what is the current completion date by month and year? We know it's 2023, but what is that current target completion date, Dave?
We're trying to have it ready for that fall semester in 23. I mean, that's always been the goal. So that's what we're shooting for. It's kind of early, but we're still trying to make up time and see what things occur, but that's our target.
Perfect. And what is the budget status roughly? I'm not sure if that's a question for you, Dave, or another member of the team.
I guess what I can say is, we work with the college, and there are things that happen that are unknown conditions. There are conditions that the college wants changes to. So I assume they're managing their budget fiscally responsibly. I think that's what they've always committed to do.
Richard, if your question is about the public funding, the project received all the necessary funding that we sought during this for the upcoming fiscal year. We got the furniture and equipment funds from the state and from both the state and the county, and the additional construction dollars needed for the project from both the state and the county at the level which we requested. So at this juncture, the project's fully funded and can keep moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Richard, I saw you also had a question about the wood fence going in, and you asked about whether any kind of screening could be added to the remaining chain link sections of the fence. Dave, what's the plan for the remaining chain link sections?
Yeah, so we're walking that. So some of those sections have moved, but we're walking that with the college to ascertain and make sure that what we put up is a cost-effective measure for them. But that's what we're walking to make sure we keep that neat and tidy.
Okay, I guess I like the wood fence. It's sort of like a Home Depot, fence display for the size of it, which is fine. It's beautiful. But I was just wondering if the fabric could be put up on the chain link fence to the right of it, to where the commons are, just for that visual.
Okay, we'll definitely take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank
Rick,
you.
if it makes you feel any better, that's my constant lament. And I agree with you. We need to replace the screening and get the scrim squared away. So
Small item, but big visual.
yep, no, I agree with you. That's why we put the fence in, and that's why we put the scrim in. If originally it's gotten tattered and worn over time, and we got to figure it out and get it squared away. So thank you for raising. You're welcome.
Appreciate the question, Richard. So I see that George and Marcy mentioned they left a few comments in the college email about trees and tree protection. And I think we got some inquiries around one or two particular trees on site. And I'm just trying to find the comment. There was potentially a little bit of damage to a tree near site. Dave, do you want to talk about kind of ongoing oversight around tree protection and making sure that, I think the comment was about leaning some tools up against trees nearby the site. Do you want to address that one?
Sure. So the team noticed some workers were, it got into the picnic, where the picnic table area was, which they weren't supposed to do. And they, our team, noticed a shovel being leaned against a tree. And so what they did as soon as they saw it was they reiterated to that crew they needed to get out of there. They weren't allowed, and they weren't allowed to lean anything against a tree. So again, we see it, we stopped it and said, no, we tell them beforehand not to do that, but people tend to sometimes just not listen, and that's what we do. So we addressed that one. I think there was a comment about some slurry when we were putting the fence in. So when we put that fence in, the first thing we did, we made sure the fence, we stayed out of the tree zone area. We kind of shortened that fence because we wanted to be sensitive to all of the trees. Now, the first thing we had to do when we were putting that fence in was saw cut. So that's basically cut into the concrete apron that's existing there. And when you do that, you have to put some water on that because you get silica that goes into the air. So you have to do what's called a wet cut. And so when I saw that comment the other day, I kind of questioned some people on our team. And so that doesn't generate a lot of water. It's very little, but it is a little bit of water. It has a little bit of weight to it. And so, kind of educated to make sure that we understand that when you do that, you can put towels or something down. Again, the volume of water is very small. But I found out when I saw that comment that that's what had happened there.
Appreciate it, Dave. So, I mean, takeaway from that is, those are really good observations to share. If there is a concern, go to that hotline. Thank you, Georgia Marcy, for posting the comments to the site. That comment becomes feedback that we share to the staff of BMC and or to subcontractors on site immediately as soon as we get that. And so it becomes really valuable just to reinforce the accountability and the notion that every person that's involved in this project has to have a level of ownership and stewardship over all the outcomes that we're sharing as we work toward completion of construction. So it certainly includes making sure the nearby trees are protected and well cared for, and we do take that really seriously. That may have been, yes, please go ahead.
It's Susan. I would just add that we did see the comment that George had offered up vis-a-vis the concerns about the tree and the water. We haven't replied because, as you heard, Dave's been busy investigating and trying to track down and clarify the matter. So I want to assure people we see these things, we read them, we react really quickly, and we are checking out what you're telling us. So I just wanted to be sure that people understood that.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. And I think we almost justifiably get a little bit of an uptick in comments right before the project update forums, which I think makes a lot of sense. But I think most of the time our intent is elevate those responses and make sure that we get those responses sort of out into this forum so that people understand, across the board what's being done to make sure that those observations or questions or concerns are being handled appropriately, and everyone is sort of gaining from that collective knowledge that we share. So thank you again for sharing that, and we appreciate the sort of ongoing dedication to communicating with the college and the project team going forward. So that's a great example of good feedback for us. I'm not sure there are other questions. I might check in really quickly with Molly and Caroline, who are helping to track all of the questions that are coming in. George and Marcy saw the one you just put into the chat. What about the college entrance signs and tree protection, which was posted earlier? I'm not sure if I know the answer to that, but Dave or others, was there anything we can share about tree protection in the context of the signage that went up or that exists there?
I'm not, to be honest, maybe George can speak. I'm not really sure of the question. I'm sorry, I'm just not understanding right now.
Yeah, I may ask Molly and Caroline to see if we can dig up the comment. It didn't cross my radar, but George Marcy, I'm not sure if you're able to come off a mute or clarify in the chat. And we can certainly respond to that one. As they do that, though, I guess I'll ask one more time for other. Go ahead.
George, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
There's 2 college entrance signs to the college on either side of the grove. Will they be modified or removed, or what do you have in terms of what you might do with those signs?
As vis-a-vis the trees.
Yeah, and the protection of the
Protection of the
trees.
trees.
If you do work in that area to replace those entrance signs.
I'll be honest, I haven't looked at those signs in a while, but I have to get back to you. Obviously, we have all of the tree protection measures and the inspectors and everything else, so nothing will happen in that area. I just, off the top of my head, don't recall. I don't know if anyone from the college does, but we can definitely respond to that one. I just don't remember. We're not doing anything right now. I just, but before we go into that area or do anything, I just can't recall.
So go ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. I think thanks for putting that on our radar. I don't know if we have a plan for addressing those particular signs at this time, but we can follow up like Dave said, and certainly give the due consideration of making sure there's a tree protection strategy, just given the proximity to the grove there. So thank you for raising that. It's a great question. Susan dropped into the chat that there's not any knowledge of changing the signs at this time, but certainly something we can report out if that changes. But right now, no plans. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Anyone else? Feel free to do the raise hand function or lift your actual hand if you're so willing. If you have questions or just come off mute, use the chat. I will say these questions tonight have been fantastic. I'm really happy that we've got this level of energy and engagement. We just continue to have it every time. We really appreciate it. I'm a big believer in process and engagement, and I think it makes for a better outcome. So thank you all for being a part of that. Might see if there's anything else from college folks at this time that they wanted to add. Anything we might have missed? Dave, anything from the presentation that was very extensive and exhaustive, but anything else you wanted to add following the Q&A?
No, again, appreciate the questions, the comments, the interaction, the transparency. That's our commitment to everybody, and we continue to do that. So thank to the community, and we'll continue to work together to always do better. That's our goal.
And please do continue to utilize those options to get in touch. The project website is a great standing resource. We've mentioned the hotline a bunch of times tonight and the email address. Use that. No need to wait to hear from us until October, which is our next planned project update forum. But as always, we remain flexible. And if we need to shift that a little bit, we certainly can. We will certainly work with you, council member, to set up kind of a walkabout focused on stormwater, and we'll get that set up, and then we'll circle back and get a little more information up on the website around pest management strategies for the campus. These are all really good questions, and we've got good action items coming out of tonight. So I think not seeing any more questions. I've tried to stall as long as I can for folks. I'm not seeing any more questions. I think maybe we'll wrap this one up. Thank you as always for taking a little more than an hour on your Tuesday night to be with us, and we'll be in touch. Thanks so much.
Everybody stay safe and healthy.
Ditto. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.